All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something huge, a completely fictional piece of legislation called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Now, this is a story about what happens when a country gets really, really ambitious. We're talking about grand plans, messy reality, and what it looks like when you try to, well, legislate a dream.
Yeah, this quote really nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly sets the stage. We're not talking about some small policy tweak here. This was a full-on attempt to change the very fabric of the country. A true legislative behemoth, born out of this really unique moment where crisis and opportunity kind of collided.
Right. So, a nation in need. You gotta ask, why would anyone even try something this big? Well, to get the why behind the bill, we have to look at the problems it was trying to fix.
And wow, the picture the source material paints is pretty bleak. You had a nation that was really on the brink. We're talking about decades of letting things slide, infrastructure that was literally crumbling, the gap between the rich and poor getting wider and wider, not to mention this growing digital divide and, the massive threat of climate change looming over everything. It wasn't just one problem, it was all of them all at once, tangled together. So you can imagine, there was this real hunger for a big, bold solution, something that cut through all the usual political noise.
And you know what happens when things get that bad? You get some really strange bedfellows. I mean, this was an almost impossible coalition. Think about it. Progressive idealists who are all about social equity suddenly found themselves on the same side as pragmatic conservatives who were laser-focused on modernizing the economy. It was this super rare moment of agreement that actually made the whole thing possible in the first place.
Okay, so one bill to fix all. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the bill itself. I mean, how on earth do you even start to structure a law that's supposed to fix, well, everything?
So yeah, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The key thing to understand here is that this wasn't about small fixes. No. This was a complete overhaul. The goal was a total revitalization of, well, everything. From the roads you drive on to the internet you use, all the way to the social fabric of the country. A true all-in-one, go big or go home kind of approach.
And this whole monster of a bill was built on these 5 pillars. I want you to think of each one as a massive project in itself. First, you've got national infrastructure renewal. That's the obvious stuff, right? Roads, bridges, the works. Then, digital equity, making sure everyone, no matter where they live, has access to the modern world. Pillar 3, a huge one, climate resilience and a sustainable future. Then, social mobility and opportunity. And finally, economic innovation and competitiveness. It wasn't just a list, it was a blueprint for a completely new national engine.
All right, Section 3, promise becomes progress. So the bill passes. And the impact? It wasn't just some theory on paper. It was real, it was immediate, and honestly, it brought this huge wave of optimism with it.
And you could literally see it happening. Suddenly, there were cranes all over the skylines. Job fairs were popping up in towns that hadn't seen new opportunities in decades. Those shovel-ready projects everyone talks about? They were actually breaking ground. High-speed internet lines were being laid in rural areas. For the first time in a long time, the idea of a new, green economy felt like it was actually within reach. It was a rebuilding effort you could see and feel everywhere.
But you knew there was a but coming, right? Of course there was. A vision this big, this beautiful, it was bound to hit some snags. And that's where we get to the blemishes. This is where the grand vision smacks right into messy, complicated reality. And the first problem? Yep, it was the price tag. A number so huge it's hard to even wrap your head around. We're talking trillions. This figure just blew past any previous government spending. And immediately you had these massive, fiery debates erupting everywhere about the national debt, about inflation, basically asking the question, can we actually afford to be this ambitious?
And this chart, wow, it really drives the point home, doesn't it? It shows the long-term fiscal burden in a way that's just impossible to ignore. This became the talking point for critics. It wasn't just about the cost today, it was about the staggering amount of debt being passed on to future generations. Look at that jump.
But it wasn't just about the money. There was a deeper, more philosophical fight brewing. On one side, you had the promise, a unified national vision to solve our biggest problems. But on the other side, you had the criticism, that this was just massive federal overreach. People started worrying about a bloated, out-of-control bureaucracy and a top-down, one-size-fits-all approach that would just stomp on local creativity and control.
Okay, let's look at a case study, because this is where it gets really fascinating. The Desert Bloom Solar Corridor. This one single project is like a perfect microcosm of the entire act.
All the good, the bad, and the messy. It tells the whole story.
So the journey of this solar project, it started with such a great goal, right? Clean power for millions of homes, a shining example of the bill's climate pillar. But then reality hit, hard. Suddenly, you've got legal battles with local landowners over property rights, you've got super complicated negotiations about indigenous land, you've got ecologists warning about the impact on desert wildlife, and that was all before they realized there weren't enough skilled engineers in the entire country to actually build the thing. The lesson here? Even the most beautiful plans can get really, really messy on the ground. It became a huge cautionary tale.
And it's the exact same story with closing the digital divide. It's this weird dilemma. The success was undeniable. Millions of people in rural and underserved areas finally got internet. A huge win. But the complication was that the top-down approach completely missed the mark on what happens after you're connected. They forgot to fund the local programs that teach digital literacy or help small businesses get online. It's like giving someone a car but not the keys or driving lessons. People had the access but not necessarily the skills to actually use it.
So, where does that leave us? What's the final verdict on this monumental, messy experiment? Well, as you might guess, it's complicated. Really complicated. First off, let's be clear. The transformation was undeniable. You simply can't argue with the positive impact. Millions of people are benefiting from modernized infrastructure. The whole country made a major pivot toward cleaner energy. So many more people have digital access, and you saw a real, tangible comeback in communities that have been struggling for years. New industries even started popping up. It absolutely changed the direction of the country.
But there's the other side of the coin. The bill also left behind this lasting mark of caution. The national debt skyrocketed to levels no one had ever seen. The debates about how much power the federal government should have, they're louder and more intense than ever. And trying to manage that massive bureaucracy created brand new headaches with accountability. It was a tough lesson, really, in just how difficult it is to try and legislate utopia.
So in the end, you can't really stamp this as just a success or a failure. It's way more nuanced than that. The best way to look at it is as this monumental experiment in governing. It was a testament to just how ambitious a nation can be when it's striving for something better.
And that experiment leaves all of us with a really big question to think about. One that's not just about this fictional bill. It's about how we govern ourselves. How do you balance that amazing, alluring, beautiful vision for the future with the messy, complicated, real-world terrain you